All right, well, good morning, everybody. It is roughly 8 a.m. Yes, 8:01 in the a.m. Tuesday, January 26th. We're here at the Fairbanks Economic Development Corporation for the Energy for All Alaska Task Force meeting of this week. Our guest today is Mr. Dan Britton. He's the General Manager of the Interior Gas Utility, here to give us an update regarding the utility. They've had a lot of things going on. They always do. But have crossed some major milestones and are crossing some major milestones over the course of the last month or two. And so I wanted to give them the opportunity. Oh, am I muted? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, okay. I just got to mute. Okay. Yes, but I wanted to give them the opportunity to walk through some of those accomplishments and, of course, always give us a little heads up for things to come here in this brand new 2021. So, Mr. Britton, if I can hand it over to you, please.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Jomo. Good morning, everyone.
Sorry, Dan, I accidentally muted you.
There we go.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Yeah, good morning. Thanks, Jomo. We appreciate, as always, the opportunity to come and give this group an update. And as Jomo mentioned, we've got some exciting news that we've been, the activities that we've been working on. So it's a timely update this morning, and appreciate the opportunity. I'm open to questions along the way, or wait till the end, however you'd like to do it. Just let me know. And before I get started this morning, I would like to introduce a new member of our team, Elena Sudeth. Elena is our customer service and conversion manager. She comes to us from working with the Alaska 529 program, and prior to that with the Alaska Chamber of Commerce. So we're extremely happy to have Elena on our team and look forward to great things from her in the next year. So it's already she's already hit the ground running and doing a great job. So when you get a chance, introduce yourself to Elena, and I'm sure everybody will get to know her more in the future. Just as a reminder, what we're here for is to provide low cost, clean burning natural gas to the largest number of customers in the Fairbanks North Star Borough as possible and as soon as possible. Well, as soon as possible is we're doing it, so we're getting there. Our goals are to help stabilize the economy and improve air quality. Jomo? With each year comes a potential new shuffle of our board of directors. In January, our board approves their officers for the year. January of this year, we're lucky to have Chair Hagginson continuing the helm of the chair, and again, Vice Chair Mike Miller. So those both were returning to their positions from last year. We have two new board members on the board that began on January 1st. We have Bert Bell and Luke Hopkins. And so I think most people should be familiar with both of these gentlemen, longtime community members and big contributors to our community, and we're really happy to have them on the team. Remaining board members are Mary Nordale, Pamela Troop, and Gary Wilkin. And for 2021, our finance committee will be chaired by Luke Hopkins, our board members, Bert Bell, and our public members are Dave Durham and Jack Wilbur. Thanks, Jomo. So the North Pole storage site, I think I've given to this group a couple of presentations along the way. We're happy to say that the tank cool down was completed on January 19th. The tanks now have gas and LNG in them. And they're working on the final commissioning and final completion of activities, and will begin gasifying the distribution system sometime in the next week to 14 days. My last update yesterday, it looks like they may still be another week beyond the January 31st, but they're making great progress. We've hit the major milestone of putting LNG in the tanks. We fired off the boilers and are circulating glycol through the vaporizers, and just preparing everything for that introduction of natural gas into the distribution system. It's a little more complicated than a normal purging process, given that we have 70 miles of distribution main already installed. So we have to isolate certain sections, purge the nitrogen to methane, and then move to the next section and next section and so on. So we've got our plan established. We've done all of the interconnections that were left incomplete after the installation, and we've installed various purge points to make sure we have good access to get an efficient purge done on the system. From that point, once it is purged, customers that have service lines installed that were completed last year can immediately switch to gas. We've made contact with a number of them, and we have I think 6 or so that are ready to go immediately. So they're within a very short time frame of us having the gas in the distribution system. They'll begin consuming gas, and we'll be the first customers for the first time in North Pole consuming natural gas. So we're extremely excited. Look for Elena's trying to put together a COVID-friendly ribbon cutting and celebration that we can have a celebration of this major milestone. So look for that. I'll pause there for a minute, Jomo, if there's any questions on those activities.
Just a comment and then a question. So the comment is, I know that Mr. Prusek is online, so you know that the North Pole wing of the system is near and dear to his heart and mine as well. So it's just great to hear that it's finally going to be put into service. What's the ballpark on when we have the system, you know, okay, so I'm assuming that again, it's already hooked up, the tanks, the storage facility is actually hooked up to the lines, the distribution lines. How long will it take till the system's fully replaced out with methane and in service?
I think it's about a 7-day process for us to complete the purge of the entire 70 miles. And as I said, we'll take that in steps. And so we think it's about a 7-day process, and we're hoping it could actually move quicker than that. But it's the first time we've done a purge of this nature with this much pipe at one time. So it's a little new, but we think we've got everything addressed through our procedures and are ready to go.
Oh, that's fast. I was thinking months.
Yeah, no, the pipe is connected to our metering station at the storage facility, and there is gas actually up to the valve that then distributes out into the system, the varied system. So we have commissioned our odorant, odorizer and vaporizers, and once we've got a good flow of odorized natural gas, we'll be ready to turn the valve.
Mr. Milne, I see that you've taken yourself off mute. Do you have a question?
Yes, 2 odd questions. 1, ribbon cutting, please let us know whether it's through JOMO or whatever. That sounds exciting. If COVID protective sounds good. And then oddly, was it charged with methane or was it nitrogen that's been holding
the pipes were purged and charged with nitrogen while they were awaiting the introduction of methane. So they've been inerted for some time now. And so now we have to purge from nitrogen to methane.
On the upside, having it under methane and pressure, or excuse me, nitrogen and pressure for so long, any bugs that might have been in the system would have been, you had lots of time to address those, correct?
Yeah, so having it under nitrogen and monitoring the pressure in the system for this entire time allowed us to ensure that the system integrity is good. We know that we haven't had anybody hitting the line that we weren't aware of.
Or waiting on.
Yeah, and so yeah, it's the reason for the nitrogen purge, and the nitrogen, keeping it under nitrogen was just to make sure that when we were ready to convert to methane, we had a high confidence in the system integrity.
You might be addressing this in a future slide, but you mentioned, say, up to 6 customers who might be ready to switch as soon as gas is available. Would that be commercial customers, residential customers, a mix?
It's a mix. I don't have the exact customer names in front of me, but it's a mix. We installed approximately 15 service lines in North Pole last summer. The 6 that I mentioned, those are ready to go. Their contractor has most of the work completed for the conversion, and it's a fairly quick conversion. The remaining customers that had service lines installed have a little more scheduling to do with their contractors, and some of the construction activities related to conversion are yet to be completed.
Very exciting. Okay, do we have any further questions at this moment? Okay, hearing none. But as always, guys, just know you may take yourself off mute if you have any questions. Mr. Britton's an old hand with us, or you may put them in the chat line. Okay.
Thanks, Jomo. Next slide. So this is just a picture of the first fill at the North Pole site. What you see here is the LNG trailer hooked up to the offload station. Just for sake of interest, we've got an LNG outline and a vapor return line that returns vapor back to the trailer to keep the pressure up in the trailer. In the station, we can either offload with pressure transfer from the trailer, or we have pumping, and we can offload a trailer in about an hour to an hour and a half. The offload rack in it also has metering, so we can measure the volume offloaded that's then sent into our storage facilities. So this offload station is essentially very similar to the one that's at the Trio Road LNG storage site as well. So when we cool down tanks, it's a day to 2 day process. We have to very slowly introduce cold first vapor and slowly bring down the tank temperature so we don't create any stresses on the steels through rapid cooling. So we slowly cool with vapor and trickle LNG in over an extended period of time until we start seeing a reduced amount of boil off and the tank begins to hold the liquid level, and then continue a slow fill for the first time the tanks are put back into service. These two tanks, as a reminder, that are at North Pole were in service in Fairbanks and were moved to North Pole. They're each 75,000 gallons, so a total of 150,000 gallons of storage today in North Pole. Thanks, Joe.
I just switched back just so we could get the overhead view of the facility again.
Yeah, so we've got
Replavant?
Yes, thank you, Jomo. Thank you, Dan, for your presentation. What's the planning line for connecting the Fairbanks storage tank to the North Pole facility?
We've got some preliminary plans and plans associated with that. We don't have a specific timeline yet for that final connection between the two. Some of it will be dependent on demand, and as we have demand for areas that are along that connection point, we can try and advance that. So we don't have a defined timeline yet, but we do have a couple of preliminary engineering designs and routing locations for that connection.
This may be a little bit premature, but my understanding is the facility has quite a bit of expansion ability built into it. Is that correct?
So yeah, this facility has the vaporization capacity for the first 3 phases of the North Pole system. There's 3 vaporizers, 3 50% capacity vaporizers. And so we have 1 vaporizer that's fully redundant in the event we have an issue. The same thing is true with our boiler system. Right now we have 3 boilers installed with room for additional boilers as future demand dictates. And again, we'll always maintain at least 1 boiler in reserve for the event of any failure of an individual unit. So again, we've put a high level of redundancy in the design for these facilities to ensure a high level of security of delivery to our customers. All of our facilities have backup power generation and are designed to stay operational in a power outage so that the gas will continue to flow even when we have power outages. The offload station has 2 sides. We can offload up to 2 units at a time, or if we have an issue with one side, we have the other offload capacity as well. So,
outstanding. And regarding the amount of LNG storage on site currently, against, how much gas we talking relative to market?
But relative to our market today, it's a substantial number of days. Just as I guess, a benchmark, the current Fairbanks system on a peak day with 1,400 customers and a number of larger commercial customers will peak out at about 70,000 gallons per day. The North Pole system total usage over the next 10 years is estimated to get close to the current, or at slightly above the current Fairbanks consumption. So it's all demand dependent. In the short term, it's a lot. In the long term, it's a number of days. The main security of supply is for the entire system is out of the 5.25 million gallon tank. At that location, we can offload LNG into trailers also. So if there was a interruption in the daily supply chain for North Pole, roads shut down for some reason and we can't get product into North Pole from the liquefaction sources, we can transload from the large tank in Fairbanks.
So a high degree of redundancy and security.
Correct. And then ultimately, when we get the two systems connected, we have at that point the multiple feed points into both systems.
And I guess one final question before we move off of this slide, this picture. Though we have a defined area fenced in now, again, we can see the existing footprint. Does IGU still retain control over, say, that wooded area there to the upper left?
Yes, we do own that land as well as another sliver further. It's kind of a pie shape piece at the end. So we have some additional land capacity there. You can see to the left of the two tanks, there's opening right now that's available for the addition of 2 additional tanks in that location. Golden Valley owns the property to the right, and to the extent they look to convert at some point, we may have an option there for a larger storage tank if so desired, to work together with the two systems.
Okay, so you answered that question as well. Thank you, Mr. Britton.
Yeah.
All right, are there any further questions? All right, then we will proceed.
Thank you. So just to update where we are at with our service activities. In 2020, we installed 206. So far in 2021, we have 80 applications waiting for installation beginning in June. And with Elena now onboarded, we're going to be increasing our outreach pretty substantially here in the near term and trying to ramp those numbers up as quickly as possible. So we're prepping for next year's work and beginning to and receiving applications as we speak. The picture you see here is actually the Mayor Ward's house, and his is one of those that is, I believe, is ready for quick conversion as he was using propane, waiting for the gas to be available. So.
Well, that's an interesting discussion. Are you in a position to discuss, say, propane and that cost delta?
Sure. Generally, we're substantially cheaper than propane. It's something I don't monitor as closely as I do oil, given the large difference in pricing. We've been close to, I think we're 30% plus cheaper than propane, and it could be even much bigger delta than that, depending on where you are and how much volume of propane you consume. Propane is usually been well over $30 per million BTUs. Our current price to residential customers is just over 20. I see Clark sent up a quick chat question there. What is our comparison to oil right now? We're getting pretty close again to being on par with oil. Oil prices were slightly cheaper than gas for a period of time when we had that rapid decline in crude prices that started just prior to the COVID ramping up, and then continued as the oil market dropped, and crude actually went negative for a period of time. But we're seeing crude prices have stabilized and are slowly starting to increase, and our cost is very close to heating oil today. Oil is slightly cheaper, about 5% right now, but we're seeing that come to parity pretty quick.
So I will tell you, I have been doing self-fill on the oil this winter. Figure I have a truck. I'd seen all these guys with barrels, figure I'd give it a shot. And I have watched that price creeping up over the course of the winter. I want to say that my first fillings were, say, $1.75 a gallon, but of course you're not counting your own time and the effort of cleanup. And it's now creeped up to, say, $2.05. So it's had us, it's been going up. And so again, and that doesn't factor in price of delivery if I was using a fuel delivery service.
Yeah, the self-fill is, a fair amount less than our current price, or less than what you pay to have it delivered to your home. But as you mentioned, Jomo, there's quite a few factors that a person should consider when they're doing the self-fill, such as their time and vehicle fuel. And the first time you spill 10 gallons of oil on your property, you might not be so happy with the self-fill consequences. So I'll leave it at that.
Well, I'm finally getting a taste of the my friends who have always been doing wood, chopping their own wood. Again, that are you or are you not factoring your time? Mr. Bringhurst, I see that you're off mute. I just wasn't sure if that's just you coming online or if you had a question.
Just online. Good morning, everybody.
Oh, okay. Good morning, sir.
And Jomo, if I may, this is Clark
please.
again. This in Mr. Britton's presentation, this is the right time for me to mention. I purposely arranged for conversion to natural gas in 2019. It wasn't available, in 18, wasn't available until, 19, wasn't available until this summer, got a natural gas furnace installed, and I'm very happy. Added a garage, as Rep. Laban knows, and increased my household and my heating space by 50%, and my costs versus oil have gone up 10%. And I have no delivery complications. So anyway, just this little intermediate, gee, sometimes you believe in good and it comes out just the way you'd hoped. Very, very pleased.
We're glad you're having a great experience, Clark. And that's really what we think is going to start happening through the community over time. Is it's one of those things that, once you have natural gas, you look back at the inconveniences and the issues related to the alternative energy sources, such as oil or wood. I mean, just a small thing like this picture that you see. If there was an oil stack on that roof, this brand new home would have a stained roof that's unsightly and detracts from the property appearance. With natural gas, or in this, even propane, you don't have any of that. It's clean burning. You pay for it after you use it, and just the benefits, intangible benefits, are significant. And I think those people that have it will start to talk to their neighbors about how they love it, and their neighbors will start to consider their conversions, and so we think the word of mouth will be a big part of our progress as we move forward. I'm not sure, Clark, if you installed a high efficiency boiler in your home or not, but
yes, I believe so. And as you're quite aware, the borough has a list of installers ready to go. Came through, and yep, high efficiency. I'm convinced that the stack efficiency, or just the general BTU efficiency, probably in and of itself went up 10 to 15% from oil. And I had a carefully tended oil, only 20 years old. So yes.
And the savings associated with not having to call the for your oil boiler to be cleaned and serviced every year is adds up quickly also.
Well, this seems like an excellent time to, if you don't mind, Mr. Britton, can we talk about conversion? Or really, you know, like what's the application process like? What are the timelines? What are the costs associated? My understanding is it's fairly cheap and easy.
Yeah, so cheap and easy is, we've got to put that into perspective, but easy, I think, is certainly accurate. Depending on the home and the boiler chosen and stuff, your expense can be upwards of $10,000 plus for the conversion. But
I meant for your.
oh, for our side of
yeah,
the yeah, for our
side.
side of the equation, it doesn't get any cheaper as far as utility service provision. We are you can file an application through our website. You can put in an application online. The total cost of your service application for the first 100 feet of pipe, including the excess flow valve, is $225. We get you, once we receive the application, we'll let you know whether we have service in the area, if your application has been accepted for construction, and then begin the scheduling permitting process for that service line work. And you can see in this picture, we use a number of different techniques for the installation itself. We generally will try and use a technique that minimizes the disruption to somebody's landscaping or their yard. Here, this is a vibratory plow that makes a very small slit in the ground and pulls the pipe behind it. And when they're done tamping the ground back down, the disruption is very little. In some circumstances, we'll use directional drilling. Some will use open excavation when it's just dirt or gravel. But our process is pretty unobtrusive. And so it's quite easy. One of the things that we learned from in 2020 was really where we feel communication's important to the customer, where we feel communication's important internally. And we're putting a fairly high level of focus on the application processing workflow right now as we prepare for next year. Elena is working very actively on a number of things we think will be strong additions to our process. One being a welcome packet that a customer will receive once their application is accepted. It lays out all those questions that you just asked, Jomo, which is what to expect next, when we will be on their property, you know, when their service is likely to be installed, and on options for contractors and so on. So something that lets them know what's next once they've actually put their application in.
You also see there's a question from Mike in the chat box. Does the IG provide on-bill financing?
We do. Yes, no, we do not. Not yet. We don't have on-bill financing yet. I was thinking online payment. We do not have an on-bill financing program yet. We've been continuing to work with and watch the CPACE program for commercial customers, and we are looking at options for potential on-bill financing. It's been a bit of a resource issue with getting everything we want to get done and completed, but it's on our to-do list, and we're looking at options there.
By the way, okay, so first of all, I see here 2020, 206 service line installations. That's great. I thought I heard you say earlier 1,400 customers in Fairbanks.
We have 1,400 active customers now in Fairbanks,
which is awesome. I mean, for years the number was 1,000 or 1,100. So that's that increase in service.
Yep, it's creeping up. I look forward to the morning I can send a big email blast out to our employees congratulating them on the 2,000 customer mark, and then so on.
Outstanding. All right. Any further questions at this juncture? Okay, just chime in as we go.
Thanks, Joel. And we've had some, over the last year, we've talked a lot about gas supply, LNG supply, and really just alluded to the fact that we were busy working on those issues with no real definitive news to share at this time. With gas contracts, there's a lot of negotiations that go on, all of which need to be done confidentially. And so there's a lot of work that happens, and then it's just like all of a sudden out of nowhere comes a contract. But each one of these things represents months and months worth of work activity that goes in. I heard that Marianne's online this morning. Marianne Peace with MAP Consulting has been working with IGU now for since August of 2019, working with me on bringing a lot of these contracts to fruition. So thanks, Marianne, for all your contributions and help with these activities. So the first in 2021, the IGU Board of Directors authorized two resolutions that are related to LNG supply agreements. The first is Resolution 2021-01, which is a Master LNG Supply Agreement between IGU and CryoPeak LNG Solutions. CryoPeak is a LNG provider in British Columbia. They are in the final steps of completing a small LNG facility in Fort Nelson. So they'll have their own LNG capacity, as well as they transport and handle logistics for other LNG supplies. And we are putting this agreement in place primarily for a backup potential in the event we need LNG from a third party. This lays out the contractual framework for which we can pull the trigger and move quickly on if necessary. There are no volume commitments either from seller or buyer in this. However, it's just an agreement that allows for us to move quickly when the opportunity is either presents itself or we have a need for additional LNG supplies. With our large storage tank and our existing facility, we don't feel like we will have the need for a backup supply, but it's just a prudent thing to have in place. Additionally, it'll allow us, for some reason, if they come to us and say, hey, we've got this availability of spot LNG at a low cost and a cost that is beneficial to our customers, we could pull the trigger at that time and bring in some LNG at a beneficial cost structure. The second resolution is allows me to finalize an agreement with a company called Top Speed Energy. Top Speed is a company that has shipped LNG in ISO containers from British Columbia, from the Vancouver area to China in the past, and they're very interested in the potential in the Alaska market and are want to run essentially a pilot project whereby a large quantity of ISO containers would be shipped via barge into Alaska and then into our system. So a lot of the details of this contract are confidential, but what we're contemplating is about 1 million gallon purchase at a beneficial price to further this supply logistic along and this potential additional supply source for us as we move forward in the future. And the last, which is we've been working on for some time, our current gas supply contract in the Cook Inlet that feeds our own liquefaction capacity expires in March of 2021, the end of March. So we didn't have a lot of time left before we were in need for a new contract. We spent a lot of time in the Cook Inlet talking with other producers, looking at capacities, looking at their availability to meet our demand needs. And at the end of the day, Hillcorp still remains the workhorse of the Cook Inlet. Other producers have their supplies that are either committed to other utilities or are only available at an interruptible level. We don't feel it's prudent to base our supply to firm customers that we've committed to with interruptible gas contracts. I think it's prudent to have firm contracts associated with our base load. and that's what the Hillcorp contract is. It's a initial term of 5 years with 2 3-year options at IGU's sole discretion under the terms of the base contract with the embedded escalations. So what that means is we have now an 11-year firm committed supply source for our customers with known predictable pricing for the next 11 years. The first 5 years have a slight escalation of 1%. The renewals would have a 1.5% escalation. The price in this contract is cheaper than our current contract. It's $7.60 per MCF beginning January 1 of 2021. So they rolled back our price for the last 3 months of our existing contract, which is about a $30,000 savings. And so I'm extremely happy with this contract and the flexibilities that it provides us, the security and flexibilities. In the contract, we've agreed to a minimum purchase that matches our current sales. So future growth is still open for us to consider other options if they so should come forward at a lower cost. We have in this contract we call a turn down provision. We can exercise that turn down provision once in the over the term and reduce our minimum by 30%. That would allow us then to supplant that Hillcorp gas with another supply if it becomes available at lower cost. There is a fee associated with the turn down that we'll have to review as part of that lower cost and determine if it's cost effective, but really protects us from or provides the opportunity if things change in the Cook Inlet and gas pricing starts to become cheaper, we have set ourselves up to be able to take advantage of that opportunity. We have the ability to buy LNG from others so long as we're meeting our minimum. So while Hillcorp is required to meet our maximum, we can run the plant full capacity all year. We only have to purchase our minimum. So significant flexibility in the volume component of this contract. So just extremely pleased with where we ended up. Obviously, we would love to see lower price, but the security, long-term predictability, and flexibilities that this contract provides really puts us in a good place.
Okay.
I see there's been a couple questions popping up. Jomo, I'll pause there.
Sure, if you just want to jump on those, although I think you did to a degree answer them. Under the Hillcorp contract, how much flexibility is there to buy cheaper gas on the spot market?
So we have to meet our minimum purchase requirements for the Hillcorp in the Hillcorp contract. As long as we're meeting those minimum purchases, we can buy gas or LNG from others. And as I mentioned, we have a turn down provision in the contract that allows us to turn down our minimum once in the term. So we can turn down that volume. The 5-year term is, again, that's the firm fixed 5-year term. The other 3 years are at IGU's sole option. So if something's different in the Cook Inlet after 5 years, we can move on. If we're still happy with the contract, we have this contract available to us and know that it's there. Additionally, the Hillcorp contract has in it a option at IGU's sole discretion to turn up our gas volume to 15 million cubic feet a day. Our current base is 5 million cubic feet a day. So what that does is if we were to move forward with the Titan expansion, we have a defined known gas supply for that expansion that we can rely on, which is a huge deal when you're out financing a new plant. So that's a very beneficial component or term of this contract as well. So I think that answers John's question. Does Does that answer your question, John?
Yeah, it does pretty much. I guess the question is the minimum that you're taking, how does that compare to the sort of average throughput that you expect over this next year?
So we established the minimum based on our current sales. So it matches fairly closely what our current throughput is in our 2021 budget. And so it's based on our current customer demand. So the future growth is still, we still have opportunity to look for additional supplies to meet that growth of new customers.
And what on the, oh, and I believe what on the previous slide, we had 80 customers in queue already.
That's correct. Yeah. So the next question, it looks like from Patrice, was, does the current Hillcorp contract allow for any reduction to customers? Is gas affordable? And so to answer that, I would say yes, gas is extremely affordable. It's on par for the most part with heating oil. You heard from, or if you were online, you would have heard Mr. Milne's experience with this conversion. When looking at the availability of high efficiency boilers, you can see a reduction in your costs by moving that direction. So, we feel like gas is extremely affordable. Additionally, if you begin to use gas in your other appliances in your home, such as your dryer, a gas dryer is approximately 50% cheaper than electric dryer. So there's a lot of additional opportunities for using gas in a home that can produce savings for our customers. Now, the Hillcorp contract allow for any reduction. There is no planned reduction in costs specific to the Hillcorp contract right now. Our costs as we move forward are a function of a number of things, which gas is one of those components. We look at, what's our demand compared to the projection, where are we at with all of our other cost components on any of their escalations or reductions, what is our throughput, how cold is winter, so on and so forth. So what it does do, though, is it allows us to have predictability for the next 11 years as we start to develop our pricing structure in the future and look at how we will deal with that for our customers. So there will not be any significant swings in our price to customers over the next 11 years related to our gas supply component of our logistics structure. Let's see. What is the cost to exercise the turndown? The turndown cost is $145,775 per year for that if we exercise the turndown. So if a gas supply from another party will have to produce at least that amount of savings for that volume to have it make sense.
Okay.
And then there's another.
We have a rather long question relative to Fort Wainwright.
Okay, there's one more from Patrice, I think. Does IGU have to pay for minimum gas takes, which equals our current demand? Yes, we have a minimum requirement in the contract, as I discussed and laid out. And it is based on our current demand profile. Here we are. One of the 4 alternatives in the draft EIS for the Fort Wainwright Combined Heat and Power Plant is to install distributed natural gas boilers for heat. Is this under discussion with IGU? And if IGU and current contracts are not adequate to supply the needed natural gas, would they be able to increase supply to meet this need if the alternative is selected?
That's that
yes,
15.
the question. Sorry, Jomo, what?
Well, I was going to say that's at up to $15 million or 15 million. Is it MCF? Yeah.
Right.
Please.
So yes, we are part of the discussion. We are participating in the EIS and providing comments, and we are advocating to Fort Wainwright that they select one of the 2 gas options. We feel it's in the community's best interest not only as it relates to Fort Wainwright itself and the savings that Fort Wainwright will see through the conversion to gas, but the benefits that the community will see through additional volume, which helps reduce costs, and the contributions to our improved air quality. As the Fort Wainwright reduces its emissions, it allows us to reduce costs through higher demand, which should allow higher conversion levels in our system, which triggers further reduction in emissions that will help our community. So to answer the question, is there an increased supply available? We feel strongly that yes, and one way that we can support that is through the new Hillcorp contract, which allows us to increase our take from 5 million cubic feet a day to 15 million cubic feet. So we have the gas sourced for a expansion of the Titan liquefaction facility. The Fort Wainwright consumption on a distributed basis has been estimated at about 1 billion cubic feet a day, or excuse me, 1 billion cubic feet a year, which is about, it's under 5 million cubic feet a day. And that matches pretty closely with our current demand. Our large storage project too provides the opportunity to meet the military's critical infrastructure supply requirement, which is 14 days of supply. So we are in a position now to be able to support the military's move to natural gas if that is chosen. I think hopefully that answers that one.
Before you jump on, Mr. Mel has a question regarding natural gas relative to PM 2.5, but I did have a question regarding resolution 2021-02, the top speed, essentially spot purchase, million gallons. Sense of scale on the number of ISO containers and how will they be transported?
So that's 100 ISO containers. Each ISO container is about 10,000 gallons. They'll be transported via barge to port, and then by truck from the port into Fairbanks.
So essentially 100 truckloads.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. But that's an interesting test of that system.
Yeah. So what would happen is the 100 ISOs would arrive in port at one time, and then over a period of 30 to 60 days, we would deliver the each ISO into Fairbanks and offload them and return the empty back to the port where they would be stored until all of them are emptied, and then they'd return back to Vancouver.
Okay, so a test for both the receiver, and the supplier. Okay.
Quick jump in on that is, are those ISOs the type that could be shipped by rail if you got larger volumes?
Yeah, all ISOs are essentially an intermodal container, which means that they can be shipped via ship, rail, truck. So yes, they could be put on a rail car for movement into Fairbanks.
Okay.
In this particular circumstance, IGU is not responsible for any of the logistics. We would receive the LNG at our storage facility.
Oh, okay. So it's not your responsibility to move them up from delivery point in Anchorage.
No.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Thank you. All right, we do have a question from Clark. Do you have a sense of the broad public local opinion about good of shifting to natural gas, air quality being a goad, but continuing PM 2.5 measurements being the looming concern?
So I think the general sense is that the shifting to natural gas is viewed and understood as a major contributor to the reduction in PM 2.5. I think, our momentum is building around that message. There's been a lot of, in the past, what word am I looking for here? Skepticism. I guess skepticism is what, and people heard a lot about natural gas coming to our community for many, many years. So while they understood that the conversion would improve air quality, there was some that were skeptical that would ever happen. As we continue to make each one of these, hit each one of the milestones that we've set out a number of years ago and are executing on the plan, that skepticism is beginning to diminish, and people are realizing that this is a real opportunity for our community and will be a major contributor. As one of the things I often refer to now is that we're very much focused on the short-term challenges that we have ahead, and we have plenty, like many businesses. We are now our community's gas company, so the community working together can overcome those challenges that are in front of us, whether they be the number of customers for conversion or any of the many issues we'll have to deal with, but we can deal with them. And the infrastructure we're putting in place is 100-year infrastructure. So, we'll look back 30 years from now and be extremely pleased we took some of the leaps of faith and kept strong with our mission and continued to build out the availability of the gas supply. I think you're going to start hearing some talk again about bullet lines and SIPs and items like that for natural gas service into Fairbanks. And everything we're doing today is prepping us for an opportunity in the future to have gas in our community. All of the things we're doing are supportive of the alternatives that might be considered in the future. And so, yeah, I feel I stick to that, and it really, that's what drives me to continue this effort.
Outstanding. There is a question regarding RIK gas. For some time, the utility has been trying to work with actually two administrations now regarding the possibility of royalty in kind gas. Thoughts?
Yeah, it's actually been more than two administrations now, Jomo. I was working on RIK gas as FNG since back in 2006 when we had a shortage of gas in the Cook Inlet and had to go find emergency gas contracts from Minstar. So we worked actively as far back as that date. And then, as you know, you were very involved in working with the last administration as a cooperation between ADA and IGU on requesting RIK gas, and it wasn't successful. And then recently we have requested it again, and we've been told that it's just not in the cards to date. So we don't, it's unlikely that we'll have an opportunity to get RIK gas.
Fair to say, over the course of the last year, that you all turned over pretty much every rock and stone there was regarding natural gas.
Yeah, not only me personally, and continually for my essentially entire career in this position for the last 20 years, it's been a nonstop, continual effort to find natural gas at the lowest cost while meeting our security needs. It's our largest cost component. So it's been a driver since the day I moved to Fairbanks. And additionally, IGU has expended substantial resources through having a number of consultants work and help to that effort to make sure that we weren't missing something and that others could take a different look and a different approach. So yes, I think it's a fair statement to say we looked and continue to. It won't end today because we've signed this contract. It'll continue, and the gas and gas cost will remain, have been, and will remain a high priority for us for many years.
Well, I will tell you, as I age, I more and more fully wrap my head around the difference between just cost and value, and certainly, it's great news regarding these contracts. Though the cost of the Hillcorp contract may not be as low as we might like, certainly the value you managed to achieve was high. particularly in the flexibility and the move forward opportunities. Again, you've got a nice base of supply, but that also allows you to pursue opportunities.
Agreed. Agreed 100%. It's exactly what that contract does.
Do we have any further questions, or is it okay if we move forward? We only have a couple more slides, I believe.
Yep.
Okay.
So with that all said, what are we focused on in the near term? And so obviously the first is to get the North Pole distribution system gasified and get that gas turned on to the customers who are ready. And what we're, I think, seeing now too is that skepticism in North Pole will alleviate, and people, when we can now tell them gas is there, when we put your service line, you can turn on immediately, not, we'll put it in and let you know when the gas is available. It's a new message for us to start sharing the North Pole, and one that I think really changes the dynamic. So I'm really happy with that. We're going to continue to monitor the markets and economy for the liquefaction expansion. That's going to start to heat up, I think, soon. As we see oil prices starting to stabilize and increase, and we see our customer base continually increasing, we will have a need for additional liquefaction in 2023, 2024 timeframe. So we don't have a ton of time to continue to delay the decisions or have on pause the decision for liquefaction expansion, either expanding liquefaction ourselves or continuing to work towards finding an alternative that possibly could replace that expansion in-house. So we'll continue to, we'll be focusing on that and driving that towards a decision as we move forward. As I mentioned, we're reflecting on 2021 lessons learned, things that we can improve on, and preparing for our 2021 construction season. We got a late start in 2020. We won't be getting a late start in 2021. We're making sure that's the case. And we are, as I said, reviewing kind of some of those key processes in-house and key communications that will improve our customer experience throughout the process as well. And then lastly, I think, and this is what I hope will become a community-wide effort, is to advocate for support for customer conversion. We had a great program that the Fairbanks North Star Borough put in place last year, which was an oil to gas conversion program. They funded that with $1 million. Those funds have been expended by customers that took advantage of them, and there's not an identified funding source yet for the continuation of that program. The borough did receive a substantial amount of funds for the solid fuels to gas or oil conversion program, but not oil to gas. So we're looking for a funding assistance with that. And Greg, you're online, and you and I have talked about this a number of times, so you're going to put you on the spot a little bit today. But so we're looking both within the state, locally within the borough, and hopefully with any programs federally that might be able to help and really assist customers with that, the cost of conversion, which will help alleviate any delays in meeting our conversion goals. And there's a lot of other things ongoing, but those are some of the highlights that we're focused on in the near term.
Right now, the utility is due from the state, I believe, $15 million relative to the large storage tank. Might that serve as, or some portion of that be helpful if it actually came through?
Oh,
Customer conversions?
yeah, extremely helpful. So the $15 million would offset, $15 million of debt that we would have to raise for continued other expansion work for the liquefaction facility, or et cetera. You are correct. We did qualify for that storage tax credit for the large 5.25 million gallon tank. We are on the waiting list. And we'll be having conversations with our delegation on that issue throughout the year and looking at ways for us to be in a position to receive that credit.
Okay. We do have a question in the chat box. Philosophical question. Would you comment on your philosophy of non-interruptible gas with a sole source versus multiple interruptible gas sources to meet demand?
My philosophy is it's not appropriate for a utility to supply gas to its firm customers with an interruptible gas supply.
It's risky.
Yeah, it's extremely risky. I don't think it's prudent. And I feel like a firm gas supply is what's needed to supply our base customers. And so I think that answers that question. With regards to a sole source, sole source has a number of meanings that would lead one to believe that we only talk to one supplier and we only met with one supplier and did a sole source decision. That's not what happened. We talked to all available suppliers in the Cook Inlet and looked at what each potentially could provide. So we certainly we only have a single source of supply from the Hillcorp. But yeah, firm versus interruptible for our base customers is a no-brainer to me as it relates to security of supply. Where an interruptible contract may be useful in our current dynamic, and where and how we made it included the flexibility in the Hillcorp contract was for what I'll call discretionary decisions that the utility might make as it relates to gas purchase, specifically to build inventory in our large tank. We have choices ahead of us over the next few years on how much inventory we put in that tank. Right now, we filled it to about half fill at the start of this winter, and that was a 30-day plus supply of LNG for our customers. And so we felt that was significant security of supply. We didn't need to expend the dollars and use the capital to fill it more than that. If we had a lower cost scenario where we can buy some interruptible gas for the purpose of inventory build, we would look at that opportunity. And the top speed is just one of those potentials where we only will consider those purchases when it results in a savings compared to what we could do on our base load. So an interruptible gas supply contract in the summertime that we use to produce LNG for inventory would be one such opportunity.
Security and opportunity. Okay. I did have one last question, and it does regard North Pole. You mentioned phases 1, 2, 3. Just for the good of the order. Again, right now you're built out in phase 1, which is essentially North Pole south of the highway. Can you give a rough description of, say, what phases 2 and 3 would entail if built?
I don't have that off the top of my head.
Sure, I can do it. That'd be north of the highway and a bit down Badger Road.
Yeah, so I can tell you where they're at in our planning. I don't have that specific, but I'll get my mind locked on those details for North Pole. I'm still learning the North Pole system personally, but in the $10 million bond that we recently closed in September, that funding is for new services and meters for customers in Fairbanks and North Pole, any minor distribution mainline expansions that might come forward where there's enough customers to support a small expansion that isn't yet in place. So in Fairbanks, there's some infill that has to go on. In North Pole, that could be even a slight expansion into one of the phases. And then identified within that funding was the additional engineering and prep work for phase 2. So and that funding is about over the next 3-year time frame. And so we're starting to work that direction. The phase 2 is a total expansion in a phased approach. Will be dependent on our demand and how the conversions meet our expectations. So we're in a place now where we've made significant capital investments, and then we have an ability to manage some of those future investments to ensure that they're not becoming a burden to rates or customers, and we do them in a way that results in a net positive contribution.
Okay. Well, I remember when Sean Parnell proposed the funding for the Interior Energy Project, he stated, it's not enough funding to do the whole shebang, but enough to make a good start. And I would say that you all have made an extraordinarily good start, particularly with the funding that was made available between the storage, again, the installed distribution lines, now things coming into service. It's just amazing.
Yeah, we have a very robust storage system in place. We have over 210 miles of distribution system in our community. We've got that 1,400 customer mark, and we'll see that start to continue to go up and up. And so we really have the backbone in place. The liquefaction expansion is the next major decision. And then once that next major liquefaction expansion decision is done, from there on, it becomes much more of an incremental addition to the system over time, more of a conventional operating utility structure. So we're very much focused on that delivery of our plan.
I will say, as challenges go, I guess it's all kind of a question. As challenges go, it would seem timing of expansions is a much better position to be in than scrapping to make the most of the things that you've already invested in.
Yeah, exactly. We're at a point now where you may see a delay of an expansion over a year or 2 years or a smaller time frame, but it's not an if it'll happen. It's just right now. It's kind of when. We've gotten over that if scenario and that skepticism of gas becoming available in the community. Now it's just how big it gets and when. Over time. If you look back now, you look at Anchorage, there's 98% or more of customers in Anchorage and the Matsu and Eagle River use gas, and that was an evolution over a period of time. So we're in that mode now.
Okay. Well, I do want to make sure we get to the last slide.
This one is how we finish every one of our presentations, and it seems a little maybe odd in the middle of winter in Fairbanks, Alaska, reminding people to call before you dig, because there's not a lot of digging going on today, but we want this to become people just second nature, that that before you do any excavation activity, whether it's as a business or a homeowner, you call 811 for locates so that we can mark our facilities and hopefully prevent you from damaging them and causing an issue and a significant cost to yourself or business. So we provide free locates, so please call 811. We're happy to do that. And that concludes the presentation, Jomo. It's been great to talk with this group this morning. I'm happy to answer more questions. I have time available if people have them this morning, and appreciate the opportunity.
Well, at this point, most of what I'm seeing is just kudos, Mr. Britton, here in the chat box. I think we did have one question regarding total storage capacity.
Yeah, so we, with the completion of the North Pole storage facility, we now will have 3 operating storage facilities in our system. We have the large tank, which is 5.25 million gallons. North Pole, which is 150,000 gallons. So 5.4 million gallons. And then we have the original FNG storage site number 1, which is about 90,000 gallons that we're leaving operational as, again, just that redundancy of supply that is another supply point into our system. So 5,490,000 gallons of total capacity within the IGU's current system.
Substantial. Mr. Davies, I see you've taken yourself off mute.
Yeah, I just would like to put a plug in for upping the ante now on bill financing and alternate sources of support for people to make the conversions. I just hope that that becomes a high priority.
Well, I see Mr. Terrio was online. I believe we did get in statute on-bill repayment authorization. And so
Yeah.
on the financing, Dan, it's about having internal reserves, is it not?
Well, it's about identifying the source of that financing and working the source of the funds to provide the financing. We, as you said, Jomo, we are allowed to provide on-bill financing as a utility. So that hurdle has been overcome. It's just putting the structure in place of where's the money coming from, where's the payments going to, and how is that program work? And we agree that it's a priority. It's we've got a lot of high priorities, and we're checking off some of the big items that were on our list that if we didn't get those deeded completed, wouldn't matter how much on-bill financing there was. If we didn't have gas available for the customer, it wouldn't help a lot. So we're trying to make sure we hit the things that are necessary to make the next one beneficial and helpful.
Yeah, it's kind of a chicken and egg problem, though, in some respects.
It is, yeah.
So a follow-up, if I might. So are you dismissing the possibility of just providing low-cost loan availability? In other words, it seems like you've referenced, which would be nice, of course, grants to help people, like we did through the borough to make conversions. But we did look at the possibility of working with banks to get low-cost loans if the borough could backstop it. And it was my opinion at the time that we could get pretty low-cost loans. The question is that going to be helpful in the market?
Yeah, no, we're not dismissing anything right now. We just haven't had the resource and ability to focus on that specific issue to bring it to completion yet. We had the borough program of oil to gas last year that provided sort of that mechanism for people to get some funding. So we're not dismissing that at all, and that's really been one of the discussion points. And we have a conversion group that's gets together. That's been on pause since we had an opening in the marketing position, but a group that Elena will be resurrecting again that includes some of the local banks. And the discussion is, what financing programs might be available. So no, we haven't dismissed it. Certainly, we'd rather it be free money if we could figure that out. We'd rather it be as cheap as possible for customers, but we're not going to give up because we might have to resort to more conventional financing.
And when I think of on-bill financing, I almost think of the utility itself being the financier. And the reality is, well, I can see GBA's got money coming out the eyeballs. I could see them having the wherewithal. I wonder for the utility as it stands now.
Yeah, so that'll be a question to be answered, and one that's going to require some analysis, right? So we have to look at, okay, if you have $1, where should you spend it? Do you spend that dollar on providing service to availability to another customer, or do you spend that dollar helping a customer that has the gas available already make the conversion? What's the best approach for the utility as a whole and the community as a whole? And our availability of funds are tight. We have a high level of debt that has been taken on as part of this original expansion. Now that's been facilitated by the loan through ADA as part of the Interior Energy Project. So we have a total of $139 million through ADA's SETS program that has the 15-year deferral with no interest or principal, plus an additional 5 years if we don't meet our demand projections, 5 years of principal forgiveness or deferment. So the debt we bring on now is bond debt, and so we have to begin repaying those funds immediately. We actually made our first bond interest payment this month. That was part of our capitalized interest. So we have to look at all of that as we consider where we expend dollars now in the future.
All right, but certainly I can tell you all are thinking about it, and I'm glad that we have such good people thinking about it.
We're open to suggestions. We are, as I said, now it is the community's gas company. It's all of us that will determine how successful our community's gas company is. And I encourage us all to be rowing in the same direction and looking at ways to continue to expand, enhance, reduce costs, whatever it may be. It's for the community's benefit.
Well, sir, I think that's an excellent place to leave the discussion, except to note one final time that you all are taking applications for service, and that customers, potential customers, residents can go ahead and submit those applications. All right.
Well, you'll see a lot more activity for those on Facebook. Elaine is really ramping up our social media presence, and so make sure you're liking the new IGU Facebook. There's still an old historical one that we've been trying to work with Facebook to remove, but it's a loan process with them. So make sure you're on the one with the latest updates and get out and start sharing our message.
All right. Well, Mr. Britton, multiple directors, Ms. Saduth, everyone, thank you so much for the presentation. And again, just a lot of great work and great milestone checking. Just it's really great to see. All right, everybody. I think we're done with our meeting for today. Just a little heads up. I have reached out to Dr. Mike Frega. We do have a presentation next week. As I mentioned before to the gang, the Wilson Center has been putting together an Arctic infrastructure inventory. And so we're actually going to get a presentation from the Wilson Center's point person on that inventory, a walkthrough, again, an overview of what it is, where it came from, what they'd like to achieve with it. And then again, a bit of a deeper dive into it itself. I thought that this would be a perfect group to start helping the Wilson Center flesh out the inventory available here within the state of Alaska, so that we can also start wrapping our heads around how we start increasing that infrastructure for the benefit of all. All right, that's everything I got, everybody. So have a wonderful Tuesday, and we will see you next week.
Thanks, Joel.
Thank you.
Thank you.